Today, 800-636-1067, if you'd like to hop in. Real quick before we get back into some of the divisional round stuff, seeing a couple of things going around Twitter. This coaching cycle has now become absolute mania. It's tough to keep up with, frankly. And so maybe it is a good thing that Washington was quick with their OC hire, even though I've been a little bit skeptical of it. We'll see what happens at the defensive coordinator position. Jeff Ulbrich going to stay on in Atlanta, so that's a name that's off the table for Washington. You know who's getting interviewed, or at least the Chiefs are requesting permission to interview for offensive coordinator? Old friend Eric Bieniemy. Obviously has some connection to Kansas City, has spent time there. Be interested to see exactly what happens with Eric Bieniemy and Matt Nagy moving on. It seems like the contract's done there for OC. They're not going to be bringing him back. We'll see what happens with Matt Nagy. Looks like he might legitimately get a head coaching job, which is wild to me after what happened with him in Chicago. But Eric Bieniemy looks like he could be going back to KC, which is probably a good thing for him. Sean McDermott fired. John Harbaugh's been fired. Now he's been hired by the Giants. Mike Tomlin fired. I mean, this has been a crazy coaching cycle. Crazy coaching cycle. But taking a look back at this divisional round of the playoffs, really good games. Just some quick storylines about each of these before we get to some of your phone calls. You know, the Broncos beat the Bills in overtime, 33-30. Bo Nix out for the rest of the playoffs. I do want to get into catch interception because to me, I know, you can take screenshots and you can send them, and this almost becomes one of those things where we're going to spend the rest of our lives arguing about this thing, whichever side you were on when you first saw this play. You're going to stay on for the rest of your life, and we'll continue arguing about it. Both sides will make good points. Neither side's going to sway the other, and we'll just continue having this argument pop up every single time we see a play like this happen. Which, by the way, there was a play that was similar but not last night with Davante Adams. Everybody immediately goes, oh my gosh, that's just like the Bills play. When in reality, it really was not. If you watch the Adams play, he catches the ball standing up on 2 feet, then is taken to the ground, versus Cooks was going to the ground while he was catching the football. So it's a different play. Different type of play. Regardless, when is the process of a catch complete? I don't know that any of us know, which is an issue. So that's the tough part about this, because I think that's where you get into, did Brandon Cooks catch that football or not, or was it ripped away by McMillan? I don't know when the process of the catch was complete. And so at that point, it's a tough one, but I would lean interception there. Josh Allen didn't exactly play his best game. They scored 7 points in the opening kickoff. The Niners scored 6. I mean, that was enough to win the football game, the opening kickoff.
What do you think about that kicker trying to slide tackle?
Anything to make a tackle. I mean, I don't love it.
That's a bad look.
I'd love for you to just try to make the tackle. You're a football player.
I agree.
But at the same point, if you would have actually tripped him up and actually made the tackle, if that was more effective, whatever.
I just don't like it because I've seen players get hurt in that situation.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a good look. That's not how you play football. You don't slide tackle people. But if you would have been able to bring him down, obviously hoping that Shaheed doesn't get hurt, if you would have been able to bring him down, because I'm guessing that guy played soccer. He's a kicker. I'm guessing. So if he was able to bring him down, even though you tackle in some yardage, you keep him out of the end zone, I don't hate it. But it's still bad look, like you said. And the Seahawks, they looked like an unstoppable machine against the Niners. We'll see how they look in the NFC Championship game against another familiar foe in the Rams. But my gosh, I don't really care who they were playing in that game. I think they would have won pretty handily against just about anybody. Patriots, Texans, I know my guy Wes on the other side still reeling from this one. CJ Stroud forgot how to play football again, which is tough. Because I said this going into the playoffs. The team that I trusted the most was Houston, because that defense is unbelievable. It just came down to whether C.J. Stroud could take care of the football, and we watched 2 playoff games in which C.J. Stroud forgot that the idea is to not give the football to the other team. Like, he tried to actively give the ball to New England time after time after time, and there were a couple of times the Patriots even said no, and he still gave it to them 4+ times.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost got to the point where you feel bad that the defense is out there. It's like, you guys have done enough. Go home.
I mean, it was legitimately like if you took 3 knees and punted on 4th down or punted on 1st down, you felt like he had a better chance because CJ kept putting them in such terrible spots.
And it's so immature of him. If you see him watch his pick six, the tight end, the play's blown up, the guy slips. You're gonna have to take the sack. It's either lose 7 yards or give the other team 7 points, and that's exactly what he did. And he's moping around, and that it's become a huge issue with him. And he did that in college, and he's continued to carry that with him.
Yeah, it's funny because he had such a spectacular rookie season. And one of the things that I really liked about him was his poise that he showed at Ohio State. You saw that in his rookie season. And by the way, he's now won playoff games in all 3 years, right? I mean, that's something that it's not like it was his doing that they beat Pittsburgh, but he still now managed to win a playoff game in 3 straight years. But the performance that he had against the Patriots yesterday makes you question whether he should be the starting quarterback for Houston going forward or not.
And that's the thing, because if you look at the records, he's won at least 11 games the last 3 years. So it's like, why would you question a quarterback? But obviously, credit to defense. But I mean, this last 2 performances have been so atrocious. You have to have a conversation about it. Especially, I mean, you also have to talk about Nico Collins and Dalton Schultz being out. But this was on him, and he let this whole city down.
That's why you draft a quarterback that high. And it sucks that his top weapons were out, but I'm not asking him. It's one thing if the top weapons are out, and I'm asking him to go score 45 points, and then he can't do it. I'm asking him to not turn the ball over. I'm asking him to keep control of the football and let my defense go win the game, and you kept putting them in bad spots. So C.J. Stroud didn't play well. I will say, though, that Houston Texans defense lived up to the billing. Will Anderson absolutely was dominating Will Campbell. Left tackle, remember the big talk coming out of the draft with Will Campbell out of LSU was arm length? Well, I think you saw why it's important right there. He could not block Will Anderson. Couldn't. And Drake May, although he's going to the AFC Championship game, it hasn't been on his back. He struggled, turning the football over, putting the ball on the ground. That game might if they don't have a procedural penalty down at the goal line where Woody Marks did get into the end zone, it's a totally different ball game. So the Patriots, credit to them for finding a way to win. But Houston, you got some big questions because now you got to figure out what you're going to do with Danielle Hunter in the offseason. You got to figure out how you're going to keep the defense playing at that level. And if C.J. Stroud can stop playing like an idiot in the playoffs, like he did this year. Last night, thriller, once again, in overtime, Rams and Bears, 20-17. Caleb Williams. I thought Chris Collinsworth did a fantastic job saying, there was nothing that was going to top that 4th and 8 throw against the Packers, right? There was nothing that was going to top that. And then he did. He's like, let me just keep running backwards. The Caleb Williams play, right? The thing that we were all told, he can't do that in the league. Well, I think you've seen, as long as he can play on schedule, some of those special plays can still translate to the NFL. Because he is incredible outside of structure. And that's why when we talk about this 2024 draft class, I know because of where we are and the guy that we have and the discussions that are had on social media from various fan bases, that it almost turns venomous whenever you talk about any of these other quarterbacks. I'm just asking all of us as football fans to sit back and take away that animus towards Caleb Williams and Drake May and just enjoy the fact that all 3 quarterbacks at the top of the draft are spectacular in their own way. Caleb Williams still has big problems with accuracy at times. I actually think it was more so in DJ Moore, the overtime interception. I heard him talk about it after the game. By the way, people were worried how he was going to be as a leader, how he was going to be viewed in that locker room. I think he's been a tremendous leader. I think this season you've seen him grow up. And I know on the sideline he's yelling and stuff. Maybe it's not a great look. I've also seen Tom Brady throw iPads on the sideline. I've seen Aaron Rodgers lose it. Those are all-time greats. It's okay. By the way, the interception that he threw that he was frustrated at Luther Burden, he didn't run the right route. Wouldn't you be frustrated in the game of your life? The guy didn't run the right route and you throw a pick because the guy's nowhere near where he's supposed to be? So I don't have as much of an issue. But Caleb Williams has been impressive to watch. At this point, any Bears game with Caleb Williams, at least this year, you might as well hit fast forward to the 4th quarter and then grab some popcorn. Because they have been so fun to watch. But then you see Matt Stafford, the guys find a way to move it down the field. I thought McVay was a little slow in adjusting to what the Bears were doing yesterday. I liked watching that game last night because it was a defensive chess match. You were playing good defense on the Chicago side of the football. Even though that side hasn't been good most of the season, for them to be able to come out and slow down that Rams attack like they did was impressive. Kevin, I understand you're a Bears fan. What'd you make of that game yesterday?
I mean, it's the most exciting team in the league this year, right?
Yeah,
incredible.
They stole the Commanders' MO from last year.
Yeah, they did. You know, I was watching the game with my dad. I said, "This is once they scored that game tying touchdown." I said, "Yeah, now it's going to hurt," because you didn't think you didn't expect to win that game down 17-10. They tied it with the Cole Kmet touchdown. Then it was really going to hurt, and it did, and it did. So, it is what it is. It's fun to watch. You haven't seen a Bears offense like that since the 80s. So I've never seen it. It hasn't been their identity to play like that. So Ben Johnson has changed things, and yeah, we'll see. We'll see what's to come.
I was really impressed by Dennis Allen being able to come up with a game plan that, again, I don't really understand how McVay and the Rams offense couldn't come up with ways to stop this a little bit sooner. They were just bringing Kyler Gordon and guys off the edge as an extra dude, and they couldn't stop it. And the ones that baffled me were the ones where Kyler Gordon wouldn't even bluff. Like he was showing you early, and they still couldn't stop it. There were a couple times where they're trying to run the ball to the right side as Kyler Gordon's blitzing off the right side. And Puka Nacua, who is one of the best blocking receivers I've seen, especially for a star wide receiver, he just runs right past him. What are you doing, Puka? That's your guy. Block that dude. I don't know what took them so long to adjust. I don't know what took them so long to realize that maybe stop passing the football when you're getting success in the run game. But regardless, they're going to the NFC Championship game. The Rams are, I think. Because for whatever reason for the Rams, it baffled them.
They have the best offensive line in the league too, right?
One of the top ones. And I mean, there were even some just blatant misses. There was one where their right guard just forgot that they should block. Like, I don't know what the heck was going on at times.
That was the big concern, getting pressure on Stafford. And they sacked him 3 or 4 times in the first half.
They found ways. And as a credit to that defense, they played really, really well. And it's not like they came up with tons of turnovers, because that's kind of been their MO. They give up yards, but they'll get turnovers. But they kind of flipped the switch a little bit and were able to come up with stops against the Rams. And a team that, look, I think they're different than the Dolphins because they don't completely fold, but they kind of struggle when they get into those snowy, cold weather games.
It affected them, no question.
It definitely did. And by the way, I love that. We don't need domes for everything.
Bears are moving to Gary now, so it's what it is.
I've been to Gary, Indiana. Please don't. Please don't. I'm not a big fan of Soldier Field. I've been there. It's kind of a dump. Don't go to Gary, Indiana. That whole place is a dump.
What's the answer to everything, money? Or Toby?
Money.
Money. There you go.
100%. It is. It is. We'll see what happens. I'm praying they don't go to Gary, Indiana. 800-636-1067. Want to get to some of your phone calls. What'd you make of the divisional round? At 11 o'clock, I want to get into some things that we learned as Washington fans, as people that are thinking about the future of Washington. What were some things that you took away from watching the divisional round? 800-636-1067. Tobi Altizer sitting in for BMitch and Finlay on the Fan.
BMitch and Finlay are presented by John Leahy and the Fine Living Group. Find out how much your
7. Another thrilling couple of days of NFL playoff football, divisional round wrapping up. Want to talk about it? Feel free to hop in. Let's get out to Lap. Lap, what's going on, man?
Hey, what's up, bro? Good show as always.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, the playoffs has been really good, man. I felt for the Bills, man. I really wanted them because Bo Nix is hurt now. So, you know, if the Patriots can find a way to get, then Drake May will be in the Super Bowl. So it's just unfortunate because I was pulling for Houston and the Bills, one of those teams to make it. And like you said with C.J. Stroud, man, he doesn't look the same like he did his rookie year, man. I don't know what's going on with him, but he don't look the same. It's just crazy. And I've been saying this, like, let Jaden Daniels get some of these premier defenses that these teams have where Jaden can play his game and be himself and make mistakes. Because he would torch a lot of teams, man. Like, a lot of these quarterbacks look vulnerable in some moments, but they have a good defense that they can lean on. So it just kind of sucks, man, with the playoffs. And then all of the top quarterbacks is out, so the Bills, you know, shit. And we might need to just fire Dan Quinn right now, man, and get the Bills coach, man, for real. 'Cause, I mean, look at all these coaches getting fired, and they had good track records, man. But Dan Quinn don't get no pass. And this is my last year with Dan Quinn. I told you, everybody, I was suspect of him. You know, just what he did with the Falcons in Dallas and to come in here with the foolishness and how we got torched last year. So he better get it together, man, and look like he got a freaking plan because he scares me. Like, all these mistakes and things you just, you know, you changing defense at the last minute, like when the season is dang near over, like just stupid stuff, man. Like, coaches that have a plan don't make mistakes like that. We need to hit on these draft picks and everything, bro. So we'll see. But this is a wonky playoffs, man, and it's up for guys. It's kind of like Commander should have been in this postseason versus last year.
I know, man.
It's a wonky playoffs right now, bro, but it's been exciting, man. Yeah.
Appreciate it, Lap. Yeah, I think, honestly, with the way that the team was playing last year and with the level that Jaden was playing at, you'd feel pretty good that you have the best quarterback in the playoffs this year if you were still in this thing. The way that Jaden played in the playoffs last year, which is something I want to dive into at 11, some takeaways that we have from the divisional rounds. I mean, you've got to have a quarterback that doesn't shrink in big moments. Jaden didn't do that at all last year. You've seen some of these guys that even have won games. It's not like Stroud was good against Pittsburgh. They still found a way to win. It's not like Drake May's been spectacular in their couple of wins. It's not like, and even Caleb Williams, even though he's made some big plays, it's not like he's been spectacular all throughout the game. Stafford had some mistakes last night, wasn't great. Josh Allen, in a lot of ways, I wouldn't blame everything on him, but he's a big reason why they lost to Denver. Josh Allen, the MVP. So it's crazy to see how this playoffs has gone, but I think it's a little bit of a throwback that you need a good defense to go win. It's not just about the quarterback. Luke is in D.C. Luke, what's going on?
Yeah, Toby. To piggyback on what Lap says, man, Dan Quinn, I mean, he better count his blessings, man, because, I mean, oh, man, I mean, all these coaches are getting fired, and Dan Quinn is still here. I mean, he better, I have to say, when Jaden Daniels is that type of quarterback, and you better win a Super Bowl or get to the Super Bowl if you're going to keep Dan Quinn on his staff. And then can we just take a moment, please? Can we take a moment to appreciate what Jaden Daniels did last year? Because, I mean, like, he was a rookie, and he had no one besides Zach Ertz and Terry McLaurin. And he beat the Buccaneers. They're no slouch of Baker Mayfield and Mike Evans, all of them. And they beat Jared Goff, albeit injured defense. But they still beat Jared Goff. And then, I mean, yeah, they got smoked by the Eagles. But, I mean, can we just look? I get fans like I get that fan base loves the comp, you know, Caleb Williams this year and Drake May this year, woo. But can we just please, I mean, can we just stop that and just, like, appreciate what Jaden Daniels did last year and stop comping other people?
Completely agree.
I mean, come on now. Am I asking too much, Toby?
No, I don't think so. Appreciate it, Luke. No, I don't think it is. I think we can appreciate what's going on with the other guys, and it doesn't have to always come back to, well, Jaden's better, or, well, they're better. I don't really care. We can appreciate that all the guys are good, and we get that we wouldn't trade our guy for their guy. Even if Drake May wins MVP this year, even if he goes to the Super Bowl, heck, even if he wins the Super Bowl. I understand all those things because I've seen Jaden play at a level in the playoffs that of the guys so far from that class in the playoffs, I haven't seen them get to. Just for example, I'm not huge on some of these quarterback rating and some of those stats. I think a lot of it is eye test. But if you're just going off of QBR, which is ESPN's stat for kind of a, I think it takes a little more into it than just true passer rating. Jaden's QBR last year in the playoffs was an 84.2. If he were in this year's playoffs, that would be the highest in the league. The highest right now would be Jordan Love in one game, 80.7. Of guys in that draft class, Caleb Williams is a 54.5. Bo Nix is a 64.7. Drake May is a 45.7. And I get that some of this is year-over-year difference in caliber of defense and all those sorts of things. But I've seen Jaden play at an incredibly high level in the playoffs, and I just hope that if you're Dan Quinn and company, you've got to get him back there. And by the way, like Lap said, could you imagine watching Jaden Daniels in the CJ Stroud role where he's able to actually make things happen, but he's got a defense like that? That'd be incredible. So find a way to get a defense that doesn't make Jaden have to play Superman, and you feel good about your chances because he can make stuff happen out of nothing. You look at the receiving core that he had last year, the weapons that he had last year. Ertz stepped up and was big and a great security blanket, but it's not like he was a premier tight end still. Terry McLaurin was a top 10 receiver, but outside of Terry, you're making De'Ami Brown into something in the playoffs. You're making Olamide Zaccheaus make plays, right? So I've seen Jaden be able to get it done at a high level. That is one thing that stood out to me watching this playoffs. I'd feel the most confident watching Jaden if he were in this playoffs, maybe out of anybody that's been left or has been in these playoffs, period. 800-636-1067 if you'd like to hop in. I want to continue talking about the divisional round, but tie it to Washington. What are some things that, as you've watched these games, what are some of the things that have stood out that make you want to have for Washington? What are some observations you've had in terms of applying it to the Commanders? 800-636-1067. Tobi Altizer sitting in for BMitch and Finlay.
BMitch.
Talking about the divisional round of the playoffs, some of the things that we learned that you want to see applied for Washington going into next year. I think that's a good exercise at times, and something that I think teams do as well. Something that's very real is you watch these playoffs, you see what the trends are, and see how you can build to either be just like that or to combat whatever you're seeing. And I think one thing that you've seen in this playoffs, look at the teams that are left. I mean, when you look at the AFC Championship, you've got the Broncos and the Patriots. And I don't know that you'd look at the Patriots defense as spectacular throughout the season, but they're playing really well in the playoffs. The Broncos defense has been really, really good all year. Those are defensive-led football teams, at least so far in the postseason for New England as well, right? Like, they have won their games on their defense more so than Drake May going and making plays. And the Broncos have been led by their defense all year. The question was, will Bo Nix make enough plays to go win football games? And now he's going to be out, so they're going to be leaned on even more. And you look at the NFC side, Seahawks, they've been led by their defense all year, and the Rams. They haven't necessarily been led by their defense, but they have a really good defense as well. I think defense is paramount, and it has been paramount in this playoffs. And I think Washington, if they want to get to the mountaintop, they're going to have to improve that defensive side of the football. And it doesn't even necessarily rely solely on talent, because some of these defenses, not like they're the most talented schemes or teams on the defensive side. It's about how they're scheming these guys and being able to work. Because even the Bears last night, they were a team that wasn't led by their defense, but their defense played really well last night. And you've got to find a way to make the most out of your players on the defensive side of the football. And I don't know that Washington did that this year for sure. They definitely didn't. 800-636-1067. Let's get out to Rick in North Carolina. Rick, what's going on?
Hey, good morning, Phil. How you doing?
Doing great, man.
I'm good. Yeah, about the games over the weekend. They were good games, man. The defenses were good on both sides. Houston, I could see the frustration on D'Amico Ryan's face. He was like, man, we just extra opportunity with that great defense. And I don't know, CJ Stroud looks like he's lost confidence, and
yeah,
I'm not sure. He didn't look comfortable playing in the cold, that's for sure, in 2 games in 1 week. So that was one thing, but hopefully he can turn it around. Now with Sean McDermott getting fired in Buffalo, you think he comes into play as a defensive coordinator if he doesn't get a head coaching job with us?
Yeah, appreciate the phone call, Rick. It's an interesting name. You'd have to continue to wait, because I would assume that he's going to get head coaching jobs now, or at least interviews now. There's going to be some interest for him to come and take over whatever regime you were previously working at, because there's crappy teams that are going to need a culture change, and I think Sean McDermott can provide that. So you're going to have to continue to wait. It's more and more waiting. That's kind of the thing that we were talking about the other day on G&D is the offensive coordinator hire was quick. The defensive coordinator hire has taken some time, but I think part of it is you're going for some of these big fish. Sean McDermott would be right in that realm as well, where you're going to have to wait some time, but I don't see how he couldn't be in the mix. He's definitely somebody I consider. Mike's in D.C. Mike, what's going on?
Hey, happy Monday and MLK Day.
You as well, man.
Yeah, I just a couple thoughts. I was pretty frustrated watching the Buffalo Bills game for a couple of reasons. One is they weren't calling anything throughout the game, and then a couple tic-tac interference calls at the end. And obviously, I'm a believer, watch football for 30 years. If your knee's in the ground, it's catch. It doesn't matter really what happens after that. So I thought that got kind of screwed. But my thinking is this, and I don't understand why the NFL has not implemented the 15-yard interference call, because these calls are so devastating. If you're going 50, 60 yards and you're counting on a referee to make a pretty inconsistent calls, I would love for the NFL to implement that interference call. But that being said, pretty shocking McDermott got fired. I kind of think he had his opportunities. Talking about the Commanders, if you look at what Seattle's done, their defensive line is nasty as it gets.
So good.
And, if you add in a good defensive line that is, able to stop the run, put pressure on the quarterback, and have a pretty decent offensive line, and you got Sam Darnold as a quarterback who I think Seattle's going to win the Super Bowl at this point. So I would love to see the Commanders really add a few pieces over the offseason. I do think there's some growth that Jaden Daniels needs to do. He didn't look great this year. I understand he was injured. So I'm really hoping he has a third year that kind of shows the maturity. But I wanted to get your thoughts on sort of the NFL implementing this interference that doesn't change the entire game, because they called 2 calls at the end of the Denver game that, to be honest, a couple of the Denver corners could have got interference calls earlier, and it ruined the game. And it was a great game, win or lose Buffalo, but at the end, it was a very sour taste in the mouth with the, hey, your knee's on the ground, they both have possession. That's a catch, the last 30, 40 years. I don't understand how they can not even review that and go over to a monitor to double-check that big a call. But on top of that, to call sort of I felt like tic-tac, at least one of the two, that just ends the game. And if you have the 15-yard implementation, at least it gives Buffalo a fighting chance. Anyway, just wanted to throw it out there and see what your thoughts were.
Appreciate it, Mike. Yeah, I think so. Real quick on the catch interception thing, I can completely understand if you think that that's a catch. I lean interception because I don't know that he truly ever completes the process by the rules that they have, where you've got to survive the ground, quote unquote. And surviving the ground means hitting the ground and also while you're rolling over, maintaining possession. If that were something where McMillan were not a part of that play, ripping the ball out, and Cooks were to roll over, and as he half rolls over, the ball pops out, I think we all would agree that that would be ruled incomplete. If that is the case, then I think you have to go with interception in that case. But then you also go on the flip side and say, well, it's not the same as a guy falling down and half rolling and the ball popping free, because you've got a defender ripping the ball out, which is totally different than hitting the ground and the ball popping free because it was loose. So I can completely understand either side, which maybe isn't the best radio, but that's kind of where I'm at. I get both sides. I would lean interception, but I can definitely understand anybody looking at it and say, how the heck is that not a catch? I get that. To his point about pass interference, I think it's interesting because I do think that it worked out fine in terms of how things did end up playing out. The first pass interference on the drive for Denver, there was also a very bad roughing the passer from Joey Bosa. So even if you take out that pass interference, there's still a 15-yard penalty that was going to get tacked on for Denver, and they're going to get a first down there. Because I would agree that one was pretty ticky-tack. There's a little bit of a grab of the arm, but that's pretty typical, especially for playoff football, especially for a game that they allowed the guys to play. That one was a little more ticky-tack. The second one that got them way down in the field goal range, I don't think that was ticky-tack at all. I think that was clearly PI. I think a guy going up for the football, gets hit early, brings his arm down. Like Tre'Davious White, I understand his frustration. They've been allowed to play all game, but I don't think that was something that should not have been called. I think that was pretty egregious. Or I wouldn't say egregious, but I think that was pretty obvious that that was PI. And so I didn't have as much of an issue with that one. 800-636-1067, though. To finish up his point, though, about the 15-yard pass interference thing, I would be interested in that. I think the college game has now opened up the ability with the 15-yard pass interference being the max that if you're beat, you can pull somebody down. So I don't know that I always love that. But at the same point, I do hate that strategy in the NFL has become let's underthrow every deep ball and not actually try to complete the pass. But let's just underthrow everything. And if it's not caught, we'll fight through the defender and get PI and we'll get a 35, 40-yard penalty. I don't like that. I mean, legitimately, I don't know why more teams, say you come out with the Kansas City Chiefs 13 seconds, instead of doing what they were able to do and just march it right down the field, why would you not come out and just heave it? Even like last night when you saw Matt Stafford at times, or if you're Caleb Williams, or one of these quarterbacks that has a big arm, if you're in a situation where there's not a lot of time on the clock, and I'm not real worried about throwing an interception if that happens, why wouldn't you just run 4 verts and throw the ball down the field and hope that you can get a PI? I don't like that that's a legitimate strategy that teams will sometimes employ. Haven't seen it as much recently this year, but you've definitely seen that in the past, and I hate that. I hate that you can just go, screw it, let's throw it up and hope that we can get bailed out by a penalty. I hate that. Play football. Try to complete the pass. One of my least favorite things that we've seen in the evolution of the way the NFL has been played is teams understand the PI penalty and quarterbacks no longer even try to lead their receivers down the field. It's seemingly taught, throw it at the receiver, and if anything, slightly underthrow him, because then I can at least fight back through the defender and get a PI. Versus if I'm trying to throw a goal ball down the sideline, lead the guy for an 80-yard touchdown. Now it's seemingly, let me underthrow it a little bit. They can fight through it, and at worst, I'm going to be able to get a 30-yard penalty. I don't like that. So I can see both sides of it. I personally probably would not implement the 15-yard, but I do think that could fix some of the problems. I think it's just more so, I don't know how you fix the pass interference, frankly, because I do hate the idea of just underthrowing deep balls all the time and you're rewarding offensive players when a defender's in perfect position, but he's not able to get his head around. Sometimes that's an unrealistic expectation for a defender. Oh, he's got to get his head around to play the football. Yeah, okay. Have you played corner before? Have you been able to run stride for stride with a guy, and then all of a sudden you have to turn around and play the football? That's an unrealistic expectation at times, even though the rules are... I don't know exactly how you fix it, but I don't know that you'll ever see it go to the 15-yard penalty in the NFL. 800-636-1067. While we're at it, though, talking about some lessons that we learned from this divisional round and some things you want to see implemented for Washington, can I talk about a position that I desperately want to see filled, and I have been advocating for this guy to end up in D.C., and I think it really makes me want him even more? I want a safety that can play downhill and will tackle well. And I'm talking Caleb Downs. I'm talking a guy that can be a difference maker at every level of a defense. I watched this weekend and saw guys from 4 different teams, all safeties used in different ways, and I would love to see Caleb Downs used in all these variety ways. I saw Brisker playing deep last night, coming down and playing the run when he would recognize it, getting downhill, bringing the thump, playing good in coverage deep. He's going to be a free agent, by the way. He'll be interesting to keep an eye on. Cameron Kitchens played really well for the Rams last night. Not afraid to come down and tackle. We also saw Cam Curl make a play, former Washington Commander, making plays. Jalen Petrie is someone that has really changed that Texans defense, being able to use him in all sorts of roles. He was drafted as a safety. He played a lot of safety, and now he's more so their nickel back, being able to use him in different ways, whether it's blitzing off the edge. You saw him come down and make a big play in the run game, not afraid to stick his nose in there and get after the running back, also able to cover well. And we've seen a guy that has changed Seattle's defense entirely, Nick Emanwari. A big dude. They play him in the nickel. They'll blitz him off the edge. They'll use him almost as another linebacker because they want to play nickel. He's kind of... they play nickel as their base now, where they've only got the 2 linebackers, but Nick Emanwari is like a third linebacker / safety. You kind of use one of those hybrid guys, and they found their own Kyle Hamilton, because that's exactly kind of the role that they use him in. He's probably a little more mobile, maybe not as smart as how Kyle Hamilton can play the game, and maybe not as great against the run at times, but Emanwari is probably a little bit better in coverage at times than Kyle Hamilton, but he is so good. I would love to see someone in this defense that can do some of those things. The safety position. I'd love to see them have some impact makers there, some playmakers, some guys that can help you out in every aspect of the football game, and they didn't have that this year at all from the safety position. Quan Martin really struggled in coverage. I like what some of the guys could bring you in reserve at times. Like I've always loved the attitude that Revo brings when he comes off the bench and has to step in, but he's just not a starting caliber safety. He's a great reserve and a great special teamer. He's not a starting caliber safety in my mind, but I like some of the attitude that he brings when he comes into the game. Will Harris, I actually liked what they were able to do with him when he was on the football field, but he struggled this year at times and was injured for a majority of the season. Jeremy Chin, when he was with this team last year, I liked his ability to play down in the box, use him in different ways because of his size. But I would love to see impact players at the safety position, which is just something that this team hasn't had in quite some time. They haven't had difference-making safeties, either at the free safety position where they're playing the center field and they're playing against the pass, or strong safety where they're getting down inside. They're getting after the run. They're that extra defender in the box. They've got to find somebody at that position that can help. And I would love Caleb Downs. I think he's the smartest football player in the draft. I think he's probably the best football player in the draft. If you can't get him, that's fine. He might be gone before you pick at 7. So if you're not able to get him, that's okay. But I would like to see them prioritize that position because I think you saw multiple times this weekend where having a guy that's not afraid to come down and hit, having a guy that can be used in a little bit of a versatile role, which, by the way, if you had a Petrie, you had an Eamon Warrior where they're playing in the nickel, that puts Mikey back on the outside where Mikey's been better. And while I think Mikey, they wanted him to be in the nickel, I just don't know that he has what it takes. I think when you look at how Mikey plays best, it's when he can have eyes and can play with his mind and allow his head to make the plays versus I think he can be a little bit limited physically in terms of having to cover some of these elite of the elite. Now, one of the things that opened my eyes, and maybe I'm a little wrong in that evaluation, is when he was going stride for stride with Jameson Williams down the field in the divisional round last year. But I haven't seen that type of play in quite some time. He's a playmaker. He's someone that can turn the ball over. We saw him do that once again this season, even in a down year. But I don't know that you can stick him in the nickel and expect him to go stride for stride with some of these guys. I mean, how tough is it to try to cover JSN out of the slot? How tough is it to try to cover Amon-Ra out of the slot? Now, those guys are the best of the best at it, but I don't know if Mikey is a slot defender. I would personally leave him outside. So if you got a safety that can go play in that nickel role and you can kind of move them around, if that's going to be your base defense where Caleb Downs is now in the nickel, you want to use him in that way. Or, you go to a dime package where you're not going to move him back to a deep safety and you can use him all over the football field. I like that versatility he would give you. But regardless, even if it's not Caleb Downs, just find some safeties that can make a difference for your defense. I think you saw the difference that good safeties can make this weekend. And like I was talking about, I think defense has been paramount and kind of been the driving force so far in this playoffs for the teams that have made it to the conference championship games. 800-636-1067 if you'd like to hop in. What are some things you took away from this weekend that you want to see Washington implement? Also, I want to take a look at that 2024 quarterback draft class. I know it can be dangerous waters to wade in because so many people love to get frustrated and have animus towards the other guys in that draft class. But I do think if we can just appreciate how good that draft class is, regardless of who's better than who, I think it is impressive to see where they're at and might be one of the all-timers when they're all said and done here in a couple decades or so. 800-636-1067. Tobi Altizer sitting in for BMitch and Finlay on the Fan.
BMitch and Finlay are presented by John Leahy and the Fine Living Group. Find out how much your home is worth in less than 30 seconds.
In for the guys today on MLK Day. 800-636-1067 if you'd like to hop in. Coming up at noon, Ryan Horvat going to join us. Want to get his thoughts on the divisional round and look ahead to the conference championships. And tonight, another spectacular football game to get ready for. Indiana and Miami national championship game. I'm excited to see if the Hoosiers can keep it rolling. They've looked so good in the playoffs. People are throwing out some crazy comps. I think we can chill out a little bit. Let's see them actually win the Natty before we start saying 2019 LSU. I don't think they're that. It's a totally different style than that, too. This is a team built on execution versus star power, it feels like. So I'm excited to see tonight. If there's one thing, though, that can blow up execution, it's an incredible pass rush. Miami's got that. Mesidor, Bain. I'm excited to see what tonight can hold. 800-636-1067 if you'd like to hop in. Let's get out to Andy in Sterling. Andy, what's going on?
Hey, Toby. Always enjoy having you on the show, man.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Hey, listen, man. I'm an old guy. I lose my train of thought real easy. Hopefully I'll be able to get out a couple of comments before I totally flame out. First of all, I'm shocked that the Bills fired McDermott. I don't know what's left out there that would be better than McDermott. If they were smart, they'd roll out the armored truck for Mike Tomlin. I think that would be a great pick for them. I think it would benefit Josh Allen greatly. As far as the Commanders, all this jumping on Dan Quinn, getting him fired and everything, I think the architect of this demise is Adam Peters. He was brought in here as some kind of a genius as far as player evaluations. You tell me, what has he done in the past two drafts that really have accounted for everything? In that one draft, he had multiple draft picks to make. As far as free agency, what has he done? Larry Tunsil might be about the only one that he's brought in. Not only that, but he was hell-bent when he came in here, him and Quinn, to get rid of every draft choice that the Rivera regime made. Getting rid of Jeremy Chin, to see Adam Curl out there making that interception. How good it would have been if we'd had those two guys as safeties on our team right now.
Yeah.
You got to remember, Adam Peters was the guy who, before the 2024 draft, said that his evaluation of the quarterback prospects was Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, and the third pick was not Drake May. It was J.J. frickin' McCarthy. This is the same knucklehead that gave up 3 number ones to get Trey Lance when he was part of the GM or part of the brain trust over at San Francisco. So you tell me exactly what the hell has that guy done? Now, as far as I'm concerned, the Commanders' cupboard is bare. I don't see how the hell they reconstruct that defense, that defensive line, the backfield, and some of the skill players on offense. I don't see how they're able to do it in one draft. And on top of that, they're short of draft picks.
Andy, appreciate the phone call. I think you did a great job with your train of thought there. And actually, it is an interesting topic about how much of this is Adam Peters versus the head coaches and the offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator. And I think this is a legitimate discussion to have because one thing that everyone loves to kill AP for, and I think we're all universally in agreement on, is that Lattimore trade has turned out to be a disaster. No question about it. You look back, you got Lattimore and a 5th, which was also subsequently traded. That 5th rounder turned into Jordan James, the running back for the Niners that barely played this year. I think he'd actually be a good player, but he's obviously stuck behind Brian Robinson and Christian McCaffrey. This is what the Commanders gave up. A 3rd round pick, which turned out to be Jonas Sanker, really good safety out of Virginia, has played well for the Saints this year. Quincy Riley and Devin Neal. Good players, but I don't think that impact is nearly as big as not hitting on more than maybe one of your 6 top 100 picks in the 2024 draft. That, to me, is the bigger issue than the Lattimore trade. Because that's how you're supposed to build this team. You can no longer use the excuse of Ron leaving the cupboard bare. You've had 2 full off seasons. You've had a lot of cap space, and you had enough picks to do this, to get this thing turned around. Because even though they've traded some of the picks, they had the picks in 24. And while they would ask, when you talk about trading so many of these picks, one of the things that Adam Peters would say is, look, all of our guys made the team coming out of 2024, which was true. But now, Dominique Hampton's not on the team anymore, so that's a guy that didn't make the team. If you look at the 2024 draft, look at the guys that were drafted at the top of this thing, and that, to me, is more the issue than some of the misses at trades, more so the Marshawn Lattimore. We've talked about this a ton, so I don't know that I have to fully rehash this, but 6 picks inside the top 100. Jaden, home run. We get that. I know some people are going to relitigate should they have taken Drake May? And I do think that was an interesting point that he brought up that, look, their third quarterback, if they weren't going to go Jaden, which part of it is, I think you do your evaluation, not that you don't do your due diligence on everybody, but who cares who was ranked third for him? He was never going to have to pick his third option. You were picking second. So you were either picking your 1 or 2. So he could say whatever he wants as his third option. If he truly had J.J. McCarthy, then maybe that's a bit of an issue, but I don't really care all that much about that opinion because of the fact that they were picking second. But Jaden Daniels, home run, we get that. Johnny Newton, I haven't seen him show up for more than 1 game, really, in 2 years. I saw him play really well against the Cowboys on Christmas. Outside of that, he's not playing nearly the amount of snaps that you'd like to see for the 36th overall pick, much less having the impact that you would like to see for the 36th overall pick. Mikey Sanders had a good... It's tough to evaluate Mikey because if you separate his 2 years into a second half, and you make it basically 4 quarters of his career, the first quarter of his career was below average. The second quarter of his career was awesome. The third quarter of his career stunk. And the fourth quarter of his career was a little bit better than the third quarter, but not by much. So 3 out of the 4 quarters have been below average to bad. 1 quarter has been spectacular. So what is Mikey? I have no idea. I hope he's more like the guy that we saw at the second half of last year, but are they going to be able to get him back to that level of play? So Mikey's still a question mark because you'd say 75% bad, 25% good. Ben Sinnott, I still think there's more untapped potential there, but that's maybe more so just me. Like, at this rate, that's more so just a belief that I have versus actual reality, because if I'm just working off of what I've seen with my own 2 eyes, he's not been that good. He can block. I don't draft a blocking tight end that doesn't catch the football at 53, though. I think he can be a usable offensive asset. You can't even say weapon because he doesn't catch the football. But he can block in the John Bates role. I think he's okay. Again, 53rd pick, though. Brandon Coleman, I still think, can play. But you misevaluated if he could play guard or not. So now one of your 5 best linemen sits on the bench. And Luke McCaffrey, 100th overall pick. He's okay. But for a 3rd-round receiver, you'd like a little bit more, and we'll see. Maybe he continues to develop. I thought he started to come on as he got opportunities this season. I think he actually started to make the most of it, so it's a credit to him. But that's a very uninspiring group outside of Jaden Daniels. And so if you're looking at how do you build this thing for the long term, you have to hit on your draft picks. You have to. And so this year doesn't look as bad. This season doesn't look as bad. Going into next year, the outlook of next year doesn't look as bad if you just hit on your draft picks. How much better do you feel if Johnny Newton's an impact defensive tackle? If Mikey Sammerstill is a legit corner? If Brandon Coleman is a starting offensive lineman and Luke McCaffrey is your number 2 or number 3 receiver going into next year and you feel good about all those picks, you're not going to hit on every pick. I understand that. But if you felt good about all those things, we're not going into next year going, my gosh, the cupboard is bare. Part of the reason the cupboard is bare is the assets that you have had have not been used correctly. It's not Ron anymore. You're going into a 3rd full year without Ron's crappy roster. You turn that over. I don't blame you for bringing back Bobby Wagner last year. I don't blame you for bringing back Zach Ertz. But who are the next guys? One of the things that's so disappointing is I'm watching a guy last night like Kaylavon Chason and seeing him develop throughout his career and make really big plays now for the New England Patriots. I know he's on multiple teams, but who's that guy for you? The guy that you feel like you can develop into something. Do you have one of those guys? I don't think you do. Defensively, how many impact players do you even have? I like Trey Amos, but I've said this plenty of times as well. I liked Mikey Sanders still going into year 2, and he didn't play well this year at all. So I want to see Amos do it again before I jump over the moon about it, before I go out and buy a jersey, any of those things, right? I got to see it again. I believe in Trey Amos, but I'm going to be a little bit skeptical after what I saw with Mikey Sanders still. Quan Martin fell off a cliff this year in terms of his play. I don't trust any of the edge rushers aside from Dorrance Armstrong, and now he's coming off an injury. Defensive tackle, Javon Kinlaw. He's not worth $15 million. He can play, I think. He's okay. 0 sacks. I get you don't necessarily judge a D tackle on sacks, but you couldn't accidentally touch a guy on the way down for a half sack? You were nowhere near the quarterback the entire season when he was going down? That's an issue. Johnny Newton doesn't make impact plays there. Deron Payne, personally, with the price tag and everything, I'd move off of him, but I think you could also make the argument he's still maybe, which is an issue, he's still maybe your best defensive player. And at best, he's inconsistent. Frankie Louvu, what the heck happened to him this year? Can Jordan McGee step into a real role this year? This upcoming season? I hope so. But at this point, I do think it's completely valid if you say, well, what the heck has Adam Peters been doing? You've got to build this thing up. You talked about building through the draft and supplementing through free agency. You can only build through the draft if you draft well. So part of the reason you're in the spot you're in right now, it's not to blame the Marshawn Lattimore trade. It's the fact that you had 6 top 100 picks in your first draft, and you maybe only hit on one of them. That's a massive problem. And that's how you end up in a spot where you go from the NFC Championship game, you catch lightning in a bottle with an older roster, to now that old roster that you brought back once again got injured, and you had no one to fill in. It's because you didn't hit on your draft picks. Or, hear me out too, play some young guys. You didn't do that this year either, which made no sense down the stretch. Just to see. 800-636-1067 if you'd like to hop in. Going to talk to Ryan Horvath coming up at noon. We'll wrap up our discussion on the divisional round. Also want to take a quick look at what we've seen so far out of some of this 2024 quarterback class and look at some of the other great quarterback classes throughout the history of the NFL. 800-636-1067. Tobi Altizer in for BMitch and Finlay on the Fan.
BMitch and Finlay are presented by
Guys, today, 800-636-1067. If you'd like to hop in, we'll talk with Ryan Horvat coming up in about 10 minutes. Right now, though, taking more of your phone calls. Let's get out to Fuad in Silver Spring. What's going on?
Tobi, what's up, man?
How's it going?
Good, man. Hey, the late, great Rich Chandler, he always used to say something. Watch what they do, not what they say. All right? These guys, AP and DQ, they're very good at when it comes to getting on the mic and saying all these nice things and thanking all of these people and coming across. All that is all cool and everything, but what I'm concerned about is what do you guys look like on Sunday, right? Now, AP and DQ, they've kind of cornered themselves. They've backed themselves into a corner with leaning into this whole CEO type of approach because Cliff, when he was leaving, there was clearly a disconnect between AP wanting his draft picks to play more, which is why we didn't see Ben Sinnott. We saw Brandon Coleman be a healthy scratch for a majority of the season, which was a clear disconnect. So now you can't really blame this on anybody else moving forward. Now, DQ, if you're really going to lean into being a CEO coach, I need you to bring in a defensive coordinator that's going to run his own thing. Let him do his own thing. David Blount focus on the offense. And you really lean into being a CEO. Because otherwise, you being a defensive coordinator with a crappy defense, it does nobody no benefit. It does nobody no good. So they talk a good game, but I want to see what you guys are doing. You talk about arriving violently and all of that play style and play like a commander. We didn't see that this year.
No, not at all.
So, I want them to cut the crap when it comes to, the sales points, and let's see actual stuff on the field. I'm done listening to training camp press conference and this kind of press conference. I'm good off all of that. I want to see actual results.
Yeah, appreciate the phone call. Yeah, I want to see results on the football field. If I want to just get fired up in a press conference, I'll take Joe Witt any day. If I want to see results on defense, I don't think Joe Witt is the guy. Let's get to John in Landover. John, what's going on?
How you doing, buddy?
How's it going, John?
The one thing that I wanted to talk about was, but the caller said a little earlier, about the defensive backs. I can't understand. We had Cam Curl. What's the guy who used to wear number 13? He was our first-round draft choice.
Yep.
I can't think of his name. Huh?
Emmanuel Forbes.
Emmanuel Forbes. I see them playing well, and we let them go. I don't understand how Zacchaeus is playing for Chicago, a wide receiver, and then Brown is playing for Jacksonville. These are guys we could have used last year, but, and why do they let them go?
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Appreciate it, John. Yeah, I don't fully understand some of their moves this offseason. And he brings up Zacchaeus. He would have been cheap, easy to bring back. Why didn't you bring him back? De'Ami Brown got $10 million. I can understand letting De'Ami Brown walk when he gets that. I also think that Jacksonville, they didn't get everything that they were looking for there. I'd be interested if they actually bring him back at a reasonable price this offseason because it seemed like him and Jaden started to get a nice connection in the playoffs. You would have liked to been able to build off of that going into the season. But it'll be interesting to see what they do this offseason with some of these guys, if they can try to bring some of them back. Brown at least doesn't fit in the old guy category. He's somebody that can maybe be a wide receiver 3 or 4 and seem to be building some chemistry, but they still need to get a legit wide receiver 2. I would like to see them get a legit wide receiver 2 that can kind of take the throne from Terry whenever they decide to move off of him, which could be as early as not this offseason, but the following offseason. So they've got to find somebody that's in the waiting once again. Mark is in Largo. Mark, what's going on?
Yeah. I don't know. It's just bad connection or something, man. Bad connection. But I'm on here now if you're trying to get me in there.
Yeah, what's going on, Mark? What's up, man?
Yeah. Hey, what's up, Toby?
What's up, Mark?
Toby? Hey, what's going on? Look, I personally think the problem with – I agree with the last caller who called about letting people go. I think letting Chase Young and Montez Sweat go in the same time before we got Adam Peters. I know they wanted to get draft picks. I thought those two were bad moves. And to be bluntly honest with you, I do think that if we're going to get this defense better, I think Brian Flores, I think the more quality coaches are being cut, the more chances there is a chance he probably could be here instead of going back to Minnesota. You got to let people who come in here to run their defensive scheme and run it the way they can and make it work the way they want to work and address some of the issues that you have. Like if Newton can't play tackle, maybe you could stretch him out to defensive end and then get another tackle in the draft like a Peter Woods at 12, trade down maybe to 12 and get Peter Woods. Because I think Newton would be better at defensive end than he would be a tackle because he's a better pass rusher.
Yeah.
So I think you can get him at other spots and go from there. I think that there are other options. As far as the safety is concerned, I know how you feel about Caleb Downs, and I agree with you on that. You can get quality safeties in free agency. You just got to know you just have to have a quality safety that works well with your defensive coordinator. But I got to say this. They got to get a defensive coordinator this week. They got to stop waiting around. You got to make a decision. If you're more people you want to interview, go ahead and do it and make a decision. But you better get one by this Thursday, be Friday or Saturday, because you don't want to go into February and you don't have your DC.
Appreciate the phone call, Mark. Got to move on real quick. One thing he brought up about Johnny Newton playing end and edge, I like the idea. I'll just say this. I watched his snaps at edge, uninspiring, which is kind of what I would say is the one-word way to describe his career so far, uninspiring. Real quick, Mark from Landover Hills. Want to squeeze you in here. Mark, got about a minute. What's up?
Hey, Toby, real quick, buddy. Like I told Kevin, man, you're right with everything you said about the team, man. And also, man, you're right about saying the cupboard is bare because on the defense, the cupboard is bare. And I'll say this one more time. I called into Grant and Danny at the beginning of the season this year and told them, man, my biggest concern about the team, you know how they always have that, Toby, in the beginning of the year, and it was linebacker. And I'll say it one more time, Toby, and I'll get off here because I know we're you short. Man, if Bobby Wagner wasn't on their team, they'd be lucky to win one game this year.
Yeah.
He's the best player they have on defense, and people better remember that. And hey, Toby, great show, buddy. Take care of yourself and be safe, buddy.
Appreciate it, Mark. Yeah, I mean, it is an interesting point that if they didn't have Bobby, maybe they're a little bit better in pass coverage because they'll have some speed on the field. But I don't know that they're as good against the run, and they weren't good against the run. So, yeah, like they could be even worse against the run, which is terrifying to think about. But it's true. I mean, imagine if they had to go with McGee, and imagine if something happened to him, God forbid, and he were to have an injury. They didn't even want to suit up Kane Medrano. So, yeah, it could have got real bare real quick. Want to get to Ryan Horvat next. Want to get his thoughts, betting analyst. Want to get his thoughts on the divisional round, what he saw in that, and look ahead to the conference championship. And tonight, national championship game, Indiana-Miami. We'll get to Ryan Horvat's thoughts on that next. Tobi Altizer sitting in for BMitch and Finlay.
BMitch and Finlay are presented.
up until Caps hockey today, coming up on the Fan at 4 o'clock, 3:45 pregame. Right now, it's time to get out to the Rude guest hotline. Rude, the most reliable heating and air conditioning products in the DMV. Welcome in our buddy, one of the best in the biz at betting, Ryan Horvat. Horvy, what's going on, dude?
Tobi, what's up, man? I am excited for the national title game. I'm also exhausted after 2 days of football. Doing absolutely nothing but sitting on my couch. I'm also trying to dive into college hoops. Today we got the early slate of the NBA, but I live here in D.C., and I'm a Bulls fan, so I don't really watch a whole lot of NBA these days. Although, hey, man, Trae Young might have to get out to a couple games. But, yeah, it's been a long weekend, but I'm not going to complain when you get to sit around and watch football. We're going to miss these days come, in 2 weeks, 3 weeks here.
I was going to say, it was pretty close to the record. You didn't mention the 90s Bulls, but you did mention the Bulls in the first 30 seconds. I was going to say that's pretty much a record.
Yeah. Well, hey, if you're you had the Derrick Rose run for a couple years before the torn ACL and the torn meniscus, and then you had the 90s Bulls. Other than that, it's the same exact team every single year, playing for the 10 seed, the play-in tournament, where they usually have a lead going into the fourth quarter that they blow to the Miami Heat. And that's really been the story for the last decade plus. So it's a depressing product. And it sucks because I used to love the NBA. I honestly can't get into it. In fact, I forgot that Kevin Durant was in Houston until the other day when I saw that social media clip where him and SGA were going back and forth. I was like, man, I forgot KD was even in Houston. And I used to watch, the League Pass, watch every single game. I struggle to get into it these days, at least the regular season. Come playoff time, I'll probably dive in.
I want to get back to football in just a second, but can I give you a bit of a hot take? I think going to these streaming services, while I think the presentation from Prime has been good, and I think seeing some of the stuff on NBC, I'm still not used to going to Prime to watch basketball. So even though I didn't always watch games on TNT, at least if I'm scrolling channels, I might run into it and be like, oh, okay, I can turn on some basketball, watch a little Inside the NBA. For the first time the other day, watched it on Prime because I was like, oh, there is basketball on tonight. I'll turn it on Prime. I don't just normally go there. So I miss out on a lot of games that I would just turn on as background fodder because I'm not used to going to Amazon Prime or Peacock or whatever to watch basketball.
Honestly, like the regular season doesn't feel as big. It's not even just, I love the TNT and the TBS, the presentation with Inside the NBA, obviously, growing up here and throughout, the last couple of years. But I miss, the NBC, Marv Albert on the call, the greatest intro videos, the promo videos, like the regular season. The other thing is not to be this guy, but guys cared in the regular season. They played all 82. Jordan played all 82 games. Ewing, Olajuwon, even the big guys, they played the majority of the regular season. Every game felt big. Now it doesn't really feel big until the playoffs. So I don't know. Also, OKC is just so good. I think they're just going to go back to back here.
Talking with Ryan Horvat here on the Rude Guest Hotline. Tobi Altizer in for BMitch and Finlay. Let's start with last night's game. I know a lot of fans out here have some animus towards Ben Johnson. Some people, I don't quite get the Caleb Williams hate. Some people out here, even though he's a local guy, I think just because he was in the same draft class as Jaden, some people aren't big fans of Caleb Williams. But what a end to that game to be able to throw up a Hail Mary of sorts and tie the thing, but then for the Rams to come back and win the game. What did you make of that one last night?
Yeah, I liked Chicago all season long. I didn't think it was going to take Ben Johnson very long, and it didn't take him very long. The problem was their defense. They led the league in takeaways, but down to down, they were one of the worst defenses in the league. So I think they have some room to grow. They need a consistent pass rush. I like their secondary enough. But Caleb was solid this season. And I know that if you dive into some of the nerd stats, the completion percentage, he misses some throws still, but also it was year one in the Ben Johnson offense, and they threw everything at him. They didn't ease him into the situation. He was pushing the ball down the field. So that's why the completion percentage isn't 80%, 78% like Bo Nix, who's throwing at the line of scrimmage, dinking and dunking the entire game. So I was pretty impressed with Caleb. He kind of reminds me of he's got some Aaron Rodgers in him, but he does get a little sloppy. He still does the backyard stuff, which he picked up high school and then at USC really that last year because the defense was so bad. They had to put up 40 points to stay in every single game. So I think he picked up some bad habits. He did get rid of the ball a little bit quicker. I'm a Caleb Williams fan. I'm a big Drake May fan, and I'm a Jaden fan. I loved all three quarterbacks. Me and you both did. I mean, I didn't understand the Drake May hate. I do think that Caleb has a very high ceiling. I love Jaden. He just has to protect himself and stay healthy. But if I could redo the draft, I would still take Caleb number 1. It would be a tougher decision what I would do at number 2, just because Drake May, could have been the MVP of the league if it wasn't for Matthew Stafford. But I like this Rams team. I'm a big McVay guy, but I thought McVay got away with one last night. I thought that was one of his worst coaching jobs in the playoffs ever. I like Ben Johnson. I like how aggressive he is. They have to, and they spent a ton of money in free agency this year, and I like what they did with their draft picks. I really like Luther Burden. I think he's going to be an absolute stud. I think this year, this offseason is going to be about, like I said, rebuilding the defense, and I also think they're going to have a stronger run game. Swift was pretty good. I do like Monungai, but I think they'll use probably a first or second round draft pick on a running back and get a solid back. He needs his Jahmyr Gibbs. So Chicago's on the come up. I think in the NFC, next week it's going to be tough. And I know that we've seen that matchup already twice this season, but kind of cheering for Sam Darnold. And that Seahawks defense is real tough, but Stafford's going to be the MVP of the league. You have a reliable target in Devontae Adams. Puka Nacua is a top 3 receiver. The Rams defense, I like them the first 12 weeks of the season. If they don't win this game, it's going to be because of the defense. The defense was leaky again last night. It really has been the last 6-7 weeks of the season. I know they have some injuries, but everybody does. So the Rams were lucky to escape that game. Caleb was super fun. That was a fun football game. I love these games outdoors, right? I love the snow. That's why I hate all these domes, all these stadiums nowadays. But that felt like an old school playoff game, man, and it was a lot of fun. But at the end of the day, I'm glad that the Bears covered. But as a Green Bay Packer fan, I'm glad that the Rams are moving on. Go McVay.
I'm curious, Horvey. It kind of feels like we might have seen a little bit of a shift, and maybe it's just a one-year thing. But for so long, and maybe it comes down later on, like if Stafford gets to the Super Bowl and he faces May, maybe this gets thrown out the window a little bit. But, it feels like this year we've seen more than the last couple that defenses are kind of driving this thing. You look at the 2 top seeds in the NFC and the AFC, and they're defensive driven, and the question is, are you going to get enough out of your quarterback? Darnold played really well this year, so it's not necessarily are you going to get enough during the regular season. It's is he going to show up in the playoffs? Is he going to play awful? He didn't have to do anything in the game against the Niners, and Bo Nix didn't blow the game for them against Buffalo, and now he's going to be out for the rest of the playoffs. Do you think we're seeing a little bit of a shift where it's a down year in terms of Mahomes wasn't in the playoffs, Lamar's not in the playoffs, Burrow's not in the playoffs? On the NFC side, Goff didn't make it. Some of these guys. Is it a defensive renaissance of sorts where we're going to see that defensive side be able to force the issue a little bit more?
Great question. And honestly, every year that I bet Super Bowl futures, which I do every single year, I look at who has an offensive line. I know it sounds cliche, but who can win in the trenches? Who has the best offensive line? Who's going to protect their quarterback? You don't want a dead quarterback. You don't want the backup like the Broncos are going to deal with. And who could get after the quarterback. That's why last year, man, I was all about the Philadelphia Eagles. And that's kind of why I hate ring conversation when we talk about the greatest of all time. Now, don't get me wrong. Brady's probably the GOAT. Mahomes is very damn good. But when we do Dan Marino was a really talented quarterback, one of the greatest throwers of the football that I've ever seen. Aaron Rodgers has 1 Super Bowl ring. Dan Marino never won one. A lot of these guys, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Jaden, Drake May, are all these guys going to win? Justin Herbert, are they all going to win Super Bowls? Probably not. So I hate ring conversation because at the end of the day in football, it's the best roster. It's the best defense. And I think it's always really been like that. Now, don't get me wrong. Brady won a lot of Super Bowls, obviously. Mahomes has won some. But look at those defenses. Every year in New England, they had a top 10 scoring defense. Kansas City, every year, top 15 defense. This year, the defense struggled. They couldn't stop the run, and that's why they were sitting. Also injuries, and Mahomes getting hurt didn't help them. But Steve Spagnuolo is a defensive genius. It's coaching and it's defense. And so, it's kind of like we had a couple of years ago, and I know that there's the meme, and it was Nick Foles, it was Blake Bortles, and it was like a bunch of crappy quarterbacks. But we'll see. Stafford, obviously going to be the MVP of the league, but it's a defensive league, man. And that's why I kind of liked the Texans a couple of weeks ago, and I thought there was some value on them. The problem is C.J. Stroud is a disaster with the football. So you do have to have an offense. And Sam Darnold has been really serviceable. What helps him is that run game, man. Zach Charbonnet, who I know he got banged up, but having him and Kenneth Walker and then JSN is a top 3 receiver. He's one of the better route runners that I've seen the last 10 years. He's a nightmare matchup for everybody. And that defense, so it's a defensive league. I feel like it's always been, though. I know there's been a couple of years, where a quarterbacks got hot and offenses got hot. But, every year that I'm betting these things, I'm always looking at who has the best defensive line, who could get after the quarterback.
Who do you like the rest of the way? I mean, I think in the AFC, everyone's going to be picking the Patriots unless you believe in Jarrett Stidham. But on the NFC side, I mean, you've got, like you said, probably the MVP and Matt Stafford on one side, and you've got the team that's looked the best of anybody in the playoffs in their one game in the Seahawks when they just dismantled the Niners. What do you like on that side, and who do you have in the Super Bowl?
Man, I know, great question, because, I liked the Rams and I liked San Francisco a little bit coming into the year, but San Francisco just had way too many injuries on the defensive side of the ball. What scares me about my Rams pick is their defense right now, especially going on the road against this Seattle team. So Seattle, a couple weeks ago, man, I was like, how are they the overall favorites? I mean, not. I get why they're the favorites to win the Super Bowl, but they're like 3-1 and everybody else was a 5-1, 6-1 price. I thought that was a little bit of an overreaction. Home field helps, that defense helps. But right now, it's really hard to pick against them because in the AFC, I think the Patriots win the game, but I want to wait and see where that number closes as a sports bettor. It's 5.5 right now. If we could get to 6.5, I'm probably going to take Denver. And I know that defense gave up some big plays yesterday, and I know Surtain got banged up in the game, but I don't know that there's a huge drop-off from Bo Nix to Jarrett Stidham. Now, watch, I say that and he'll throw 6 picks. He'll pull a Nathan Peterman and kill me. But I'm not the biggest Bo Nix guy, which is why I can never get there with Denver. I know when everything's on time and he's just, running the, I hate to say system quarterback, but when he's, just getting rid of the ball quickly, everything's good. But I just don't trust him in the fourth quarter of some of these games. So I think Stidham in a revenge spot might be serviceable enough to cover the number. But if I had to pick right now, if I had to make a bet, you gave me a free bet, I'd probably take Seattle, man. Even though Stafford's going to be the MVP, even though I love McVay, this Seattle team just looks like a juggernaut right now. I mean, they just hung 40 on the Niners.
Yeah.
They coached circles around Shanny in that game, so I'd probably pick Seattle.
Yeah, it feels like if they can run the football, because one thing about them is they are committed to the run. They're not always going to be able to run the football, though. So if they are able to run it at all like they did against San Francisco, then I think you can go ahead and pencil them into the Super Bowl, and if they keep running it like that, they're going to lift the Lombardi. Tonight, though, the championship game, the Natty, Indiana and Miami. I'm really intrigued by this because I don't want to go too early on the Indiana thing where people are like, oh, are they 2019 LSU? And let's wait till they actually win the thing, and then we can have that conversation. But they execute at such a high level, Horvey, that I don't recall a team that – it's not that they're not talented because they have a lot of good players, but it's not like it's Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Joe Burrow, all those guys. They have a solid roster, but it's not superstars. But they just don't make any mistakes. What do you got tonight?
They don't make any mistakes. I know. It's like a service academy team almost, man. They're so buttoned up.
Yeah.
But they're so disciplined, and Cignetti's just a great coach that it's hard to bet against them. And yet I did that with Oregon, and I knew that game was over on the first play. Not so much because it was a pick six and Dante Moore stared down the receiver, but his body language after, he was like, it was like Sam Darnold out there seeing ghosts. So knew that was a bad one. I'm with you, though, man. Indiana's a great football team, but I took Miami. I said if I had a good weekend this weekend and I had a really good betting weekend that I was going to bet Miami on the money line because I haven't heard anybody pick them to win this football game. And it makes sense because I think Indiana's the better team. But this game is going to be played in Miami. You could still get, this number was 8.5. So some professional money is coming in on Miami because we're down to 7.5. Anything over a touchdown, I at least like them to cover the spread here, close to home. And it's hard to take an under in this game because of all the playmakers on the offensive side of the ball for both teams. You got Fernando Mendoza, you got Carson Beck. But I think this could be a lower scoring, at least first half. The reason I like Miami and think they have a shot is their defense. And I know Reuben Bain Jr. was kind of quiet the other night, but I think he's going to be a top 3 pick. If I had a Heisman vote, Mendoza was great, but I would have voted for Reuben Bain Jr., man. I like Akeem. And their run defense and their pass defense is really damn good. In fact, they lead the FBS, Miami does, with a 92.5 team pass rushing grade. They have 54 sacks. That's the most in the country. Mendoza's been great, and Indiana's offensive line is the 16th best in team pass blocking grade. But if they could get some pressure on Mendoza, maybe they could force a couple turnovers. Indiana's run game has been awesome. They average 5.8 yards per carry, 17th best in the nation. But now you're going against Miami's run defense, which only allows 4.1 yards per carry, one of the better run defenses, third in the nation in run defense grade. On the offensive side of the ball, can we trust Carson Beck? 2 years ago at Georgia, I would have said no because he was really sloppy with the football. He had double-digit turnovers. He's limited that. I do really like Malachi Toney. I don't know if this is going to be a big game because he does everything like Yak-wise, catches all those balls at the line of scrimmage. It's a lot of screens, but Indiana's done a really good job preventing production after the catch. In fact, they're only giving up 4.8 yards after catch per completion, 14th lowest in the nation. They've only missed 42 tackles in coverage. So I think it's going to be a lower scoring game. I like Miami, though, man. I really like their run game. Mark Fletcher Jr. has been an absolute stud. He has 426 rushing yards after initial contact. Let's see if he can do it against Indiana because we talk about their offense, and rightfully so. Their strong run game, Mendoza is going to be the number 1 overall pick, but their defense has been really good. I really like what they do with their safeties. Yeah. They have a top 10 defense. I think Miami keeps this one close, though, man. It's going to come down to, though, can they get pressure on Mendoza? Because if their offensive line holds up against this really good Miami defensive line and he has clean pockets to throw from, Indiana's going to embarrass them. They probably embarrass me, but I'm taking Miami. I think it's too many points. And this kind of reminds me of one of the first national title games that I went out with my buddies back in the day, freshman year of high school in Miami, the Willis McGahee. They pull off the upset. So I could see it happening again tonight, man. I feel like nobody's giving them any credit. I do like Cignetti a whole lot more than I like anybody on the Miami coaching staff, especially Mario Cristobal. But I think they're going to keep this game close, maybe win it outright.
It's tough for me because Indiana executes at such a high level. But if there is one thing that can just demolish any game plan, even if you execute at a high level, it's a great pass rush and a great front. Because even if you're executing well, if you're just getting beat up front, you can't do anything about it. It doesn't really matter how well you're executing if your dudes are just getting blown off the ball. And I think that Miami can do that. And I think you look at their run through the playoff, they struggled to score anything against Texas A&M, but they also didn't let Marcel Reed and their offense do anything. I think Ohio State was the second best team in the nation. I think the only other team that could have beat them would have been Indiana, but because of the fact that they couldn't block Bain and Mesidor, they get past Ohio State. We saw what they did against Ole Miss, and now you go up against Indiana, who they executed a high level, but if Bain and Mesidor just live in the backfield the entire game, I don't know how you beat them.
Right. Like, if you could hold Indiana, and it's going to be tough, to 3-4 yards per carry, it comes down to, can you force them into known passing downs, those 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8s. And I know Mendoza has made some huge plays. He's been a killer. But, I mean, if you could force them into some uncomfortable situations where you know they have to throw the football, then you could tee off. The problem is, man, I mean, like you said, they're so buttoned up, and they're so good after the catch. They do have such a strong run game.
And they'll have a great game plan, so it's not something where they're going to be idiots and try to have him back there all day throwing the ball down the football field. Like, Mendoza is going to hit the back step and get the ball out. It's just, if you get to a spot where it's a 3-point game late either direction, and they're able to tee off, and it's close, and you can have a pivotal play where it's, you know, a sack or a strip fumble or something like that. If you can keep it within a game, and Carson Beck showed some stones in the last game against Ole Miss, like, I think if you're Miami, you're just trying to keep it within a score late, and you'll take your chances.
That's what I like, man, is Beck in that game where he used to force a lot of those throws tight in coverage. He used his legs. I mean, he scores what ends up being the game-winning touchdown with his legs. So I think he's improved a lot the last couple of years. I also think he knows he's not going to be the number 1 overall pick. People thought a couple of years ago he had a shot to go number 1 overall or be a top 5 pick. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think he kind of just is who he is. So I could see him leaving it all on the field, you know, using his legs a little bit. I really did like the play calling in that last game, some read option stuff. And again, if Fletcher and Toney, if one of those guys could break a big play, because I do think this is going to be a lower scoring game, I think Miami could win this game outright. Now, watch, I say that, and people will be clowning me on social media because it'll be 31-0 going into the half. Indiana, they're a scary team to bet against, but I'm with you, man. I mean, I like the talent, but it's hard to compare them to that LSU team, especially when you go back and you look. I mean, Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase. I mean, there was just so many studs on both sides of the ball on that team, but we'll see how it goes tonight.
Yeah, I didn't get to really enjoy the early 2000s Miami Hurricanes, so the 2019 LSU team's the best I've ever seen. I couldn't say that quite about Indiana, but I don't know if I've ever seen a team just go out there and do everything the right way the entire football game, every single time they step on the football field. That's Indiana. So we'll see. I think tonight's a intriguing one. I don't know that anybody was expecting Miami, the last team in, to go on a run, but I think they were the right team to get in over Notre Dame. I know you wanted your Irish in, but it's been a fun playoff.
I will say this really quick because I'm not going to be all boo-hoo about Notre Dame because you got to win at least one of those two games against Texas A&M or Miami. But they did play Miami really tough. They lose by a field goal, and It was C.J. Carr's first game on the road against that defense. But I really do think, and I never say this with Notre Dame, I was just happy to be there last year. I told you they were going to lose that game to Ohio State. I think they would have had a shot to win it all this year. I mean, they had the third best odds, and they were a much different team the second half of the season. But the committee got it right putting Miami in, and now we're seeing that, man. I mean, this is a really talented team. That's why I have to give them some credit. Could they get blown out? Absolutely. Like, is this the biggest bet of my life or the biggest prediction? No. But there's just too many athletes and too much talent, too much NFL talent on that team to just discredit them. Have them be an 8-point underdog at home, really.
Yeah, no, and you got to give credit. I mean, the NFL playoffs, have, for the most part, over half the games have been competitive, one score, overtimes. The college football playoff, there have been some blowouts, but for the most part, it's been really competitive. Not Indiana's games, but throughout the playoff, it's been good games. So excited to watch tonight. Horvey, appreciate it, man. Always great to chat.
Hey, thanks, Toby. Go Wizards.
Go Wizards. yeah, something like that. Go Wizards. Actually, I need them to keep losing so I can get AJ DeBonsa or Darren Peterson, and then we can do Go Wizards again next season. 800-636-1067 if you'd like to hop in. Want to talk about the national championship coming up tonight. We'll also give you some of our picks before we get out of here. Tobi Altizer in for BMitch and Finlay on The Fan.
BMitch and Finlay are presented by John Leahy and the Fine Living Group.
without bringing extra guys. They stunt. They do a lot of stuff up front. I'm intrigued to see how they're going to be able to get pressure because this Miami offensive line is really good, anchored by their right tackle. Francis Mauigoa is probably going to go in the top 15 in the NFL draft. I love watching Miami's running back, Mark Fletcher. Reminds me a little bit of how Brian Robinson used to run the ball at Alabama. He's going to get downhill. He's going to hit you. He's going to bounce off. He's going to keep going. I like watching him a lot, and I think he's a really good back. And if they can ride him, they will. And I think if they can get that run game going and Indiana can't slow them down, it becomes real tough to beat a Miami team that's going to be able to get a rush. And Malachi Toney's going to play a big role here. If they can find a way to get him into some open space, he's electric. But I don't know how much they have in the pass game aside from that. Carson Beck, as long as he doesn't go out there and play stupidly like he's C.J. Stroud or something, like if he can play like he's under control and keep the football, then you like your chances. This is going to be a fun one because Miami's going to try to beat you up in the trenches, and Indiana's not afraid of that. And Indiana is going to be more than willing to meet you with a punch with your jabs. They're more than willing to try to throw some haymakers back, but they're not going to do anything crazy. They're just going to go out there and play their game. And I love the way that Coach Cignetti has the guys playing to the point that, you know, Indiana goes into every game thinking we just have to play our football and we'll beat anybody. And they truly believe that. Because if you watch the way that they play, none of their guys try to go outside of what is their role. None of their guys try to do more than they're asked. They do exactly what they're coached to do. They have great technique. They have great ability to do exactly what they're coached to do. And when you have the right coaches to put you in the position to do it, like Indiana does, then you can go win these ball games with less talent than the other side. And you look at the teams they beat. No one is thinking that Ohio State has less talent than Indiana, but they execute every single play. They don't take plays off. They don't make mistakes. And they've got a quarterback that's more than willing, even as a Heisman Trophy winner, to not feel like he has to go win the football game either. If Fernando Mendoza has to only throw 15 times, he's more than willing to do that. I mean, you just look at what he's done in these playoffs. It's not like he's had to do anything crazy. He has fewer incompletions than touchdowns so far in the playoffs because he hasn't had to do a whole lot. And he doesn't feel like he has to prove himself. And it's an interesting evaluation when you look at what he's going to be able to do in the NFL because he's yet to even throw for 200 yards in the playoffs, but he stays within himself. I mean, if you just look at his numbers so far in the playoffs, Alabama, 14 of 16, $192, 3 touchdowns, no picks. Against Oregon, 17 of 20, $177, 5 touchdowns, no picks. He's made some really good throws in the playoffs, but he hasn't felt like he's had to do too much. He's been really good at taking care of the football, throwing the ball where it should go. I'm curious, though, if Bain and Mesidor start wrecking the game like you saw them do so many times throughout the season and in these playoffs. And they did it against Ohio State to the point that Julian Sayin, who was in New York as well for the Heisman Trophy ceremony, didn't end up winning it, but had a really good season as well. And I think you could have made an argument if they won the Big Ten championship that maybe he deserved to win the Heisman Trophy. But the way they were able to get after Sayin, if you can get after Mendoza like that, does that change how he plays? Does he get a little frenetic? Does he start to put the ball in harm's way? I don't think so. He's a presumed number 1 overall pick. But he also hasn't been put in that sort of scenario yet in the playoffs. He wasn't put in that sort of scenario against Ohio State in the Big Ten championship. And these big moments, these last 3 games, where you go against Ohio State in the Big Ten championship, Alabama in the Rose Bowl, and then Oregon in the Peach Bowl, he's not been put in situations where he's been in a bad spot or had to come back from anything. He's been put in the prime situation. Maybe they can do that one more time, and that would put them in that sort of conversation with LSU, with the Alabama of 2020. But I'm not quite ready to have that conversation yet. I'm curious to watch tonight because if there's one thing that could beat them, because I truly don't think that there is another team outside of Indiana that would have beaten Ohio State in these playoffs other than Miami because of what they did with their defensive line against Ohio State's offensive line. If Miami can do that again tonight, I'd be curious to see what Indiana could do. But at the same point, I think they're going to go in with a great game plan. They're going to get the ball out quick. They're going to find guys, make it as simple as possible. And the best part about it, too, is the difference between a guy like a Julian Sayin and a Fernando Mendoza is you can have everything correct or call a good play, but if it's not against the right look, Sayin's not as experienced as Mendoza. Mendoza is going to be able to get you in and out of bad plays. He's going to be able to figure stuff out at the line of scrimmage. He's going to be able to maneuver a little bit more up there versus Sayin, I think, was a little bit trapped, even though he's got more talent on the outside. So I'm really curious about this game tonight. But the only reason why I'm not 100% confident in Indiana winning is literally Ruben Bain and Akeem Mesidor. Those guys can take over a game and win it. And it would not surprise me at all if we're talking tomorrow about a Miami National Championship and we're talking about Ruben Bain and Akeem Mesidor being two Miami legends for the rest of time because they just completely destroyed the best team in college football. 800-636-1067. We'll wrap things up next. I want to get the guys behind the scenes. I want to get their thoughts on this national championship and who they've got for tonight. But we'll wrap things up talking about the Natty next here on The Fan.
BMitch and Finlay are presented by John Leahy and the Fine Living Group. Find out how much your home is worth in less than 30 seconds at JON.
out in Colorado against the Avs. Wrapping up our discussion on the national championship game. Real quick, let's fit in PJ and Reston. PJ, what's going on?
Hey, happy Monday, everybody. And, the games this weekend, and I think the game tonight, they've all been and they will be awesome. And, it just made me feel thankful with all the stuff that's going on in the world. Thank God for sports to get away from it,
yes.
Especially as a Persian American. And then I wanted to ask you two questions, sir, about the Hoosiers. But right before I ask you, I just also wanted to say that
Oh, PJ, you broke up. Let me try this real quick. PJ,
ask you about Indiana. Yes, sir.
Yeah,
yes,
what were the questions you had?
Okay, so my two questions were this. If Indiana wins tonight, and they win by a huge amount, given how amazing they've been the last two games, where would you rank them all time if they win? Not yet, but if they win. To me, this guy reminds me a lot of Tom Brady. He may ironically go to the Raiders at one.
Yeah.
Tom Brady may be his mentor. He's a kind of a genius level guy.
Yeah.
When you look at the way he prepares, and he's a great kid. So yeah, I mean, I don't understand why people keep saying, "Oh, next year's quarterback class." When you got this guy right here, that could be an all-time. Maybe. Nah, I'm getting too ahead of myself. But
I
the potential
appreciate
is
it,
there.
PJ. Real quick to answer your two questions. The hard part is when you're talking ranking Indiana all time. Say they roll tonight, which I think is a very real possibility as well, even though I've been talking up Miami. I don't know where you rank them all time. In terms of how they've played, they have to be in the conversation with some of these all-time teams like 2020 Alabama, 19 LSU. They have to be in there. But, I mean, listen to this 19 LSU team and some of these numbers. Joe Burrow threw for 60 touchdowns, just 5,671 yards, 60 touchdowns to 6 interceptions. Jamar Chase had 1,780 receiving yards and 20 touchdowns. Justin Jefferson had 1,540 yards and 18 touchdowns. Clyde Edwards-Helaire ran for 1,400 yards and 16 touchdowns. I mean, good grief. This Indiana team doesn't necessarily have all that, but they're just as dominant, which is crazy to think about. So I have no idea. That's a difficult question and something that I'm more than excited to dive into if they roll tonight. I'm going to wait, though, until we see that. To his conversation about Mendoza, he's very interesting to me because evaluating him for the NFL, I think he will be a good NFL quarterback. I don't know if he's ever a transcendent great NFL quarterback, but there is something to be said about playing the quarterback position like you're supposed to. What is the most basic way and most basic definition of how you're supposed to play the quarterback position? Control the offense and throw the ball to the guy who is open. The most basic sense. Like if you go play in the backyard, you're playing two-hand touch, you're playing flag, what's the most basic sense of what you want out of the quarterback? Throw it to the guy who's open. That's what Fernando Mendoza does. He's so good at it. He doesn't do anything spectacular. He's not the best athlete. I wouldn't say that he has the biggest arm, but he just hits guys who are open. So can he be transcendent like Josh Allen can be, like Pat Mahomes? Maybe not. But that being said, I wouldn't say that Joe Burrow is necessarily the most athletic. I wouldn't say that Joe Burrow has the strongest arm, but he does a lot of that same sort of thing. So I don't know. If you're looking at next year's class, there are some really good people. Like I think there could have been a legit discussion if Dante Moore came out that maybe you roll the dice with Moore because of the talent level over Mendoza. That wouldn't have happened. Mendoza would have gone 1-1 to the Raiders. But I think you could have had a legit discussion and debate about Moore now that he's not in this class. So I think another year development for Moore, I think, is an interesting one. Arch Manning will be interesting, and there's plenty of guys. I mean, Lenoris Sellers, if he has a good year next year, is someone to watch for, although he didn't really do much this season. There's a lot of names in next year's quarterback class that I'm intrigued by, but we thought that this year's quarterback class was going to be intriguing, and we kind of have Fernando Mendoza and no one else. Ty Simpson isn't really that interesting. Trinidad Chambliss is probably the most interesting quarterback in the draft. Where does he end up going? Real quick, before we get out of here and turn it over to Doc, I'm going to go around the horn here. What do we got for the national championship tonight? We'll start with the Ohio State Buckeye. Wes, what do you got?
Yeah, I mean, to me, this is going to be, I don't want to say easy, but I'm going to go with Indiana. I do want Miami, but with Elijah Surratt, Omar Cooper, and the way that Fernando Mendoza has been playing, especially in the red zone, I think it's going to be tough even stopping that offense. And if you want to, you could talk about an hour about that defense, especially what they did against Ohio State and Oregon. Completely dominant. So I'm going to go with Indiana. I think they cover that 8.5 spread.
What do you got, Kevin?
I've been telling them in here I'm rolling with Indiana, but if everyone's going Indiana, I think someone's got to take Miami. So I think that pass rush gets to Mendoza and upset special.
I like it
tonight.
I like it. If they're going to do it, it is going to be on the back of Bain and Mesidor. Like Brian, what do you got?
Elijah Surratt, 20 seconds left, 30-yard touchdown, back of the end zone. Carson Beck goes crying home. Finally ends his college football career.
So I take it you're not taking a cover, though. You're not going.
No, Malachi Toney's going to do some nonsense to keep it close.
I'm going to go with Indiana. I think that they do, because to me, this could be one of those things where I talk myself into Miami and they find a good way to slow down Bain and they chip him and they slow down Mesidor as well. And all of a sudden, Indiana's just back to doing Indiana things and they end up winning 45-10. Like that very well could be the case. But I'm gonna say that they cover, but it's not necessarily because I think Bain and Mesidor are gonna be felt. I don't know that Carson Beck and Malachi Toney get much going. I'm going to go 31-14 Indiana. They're going to roll, but it's not going to be as dominant as we've seen. But winning by 17 in the Natty would still be pretty dominant. So it's going to be an exciting game tonight. Excited to see how it plays out. It's going to do it for me. Coming up next, Doc Walker's got you for the rest of BMitch and Finlay and the beginning of Grant and Danny taking you up until Capitals hockey. For the guys behind the scenes doing all the hard work, appreciate them. I'm Tobi Altizer. DOC, the legend, up next here on The Fan.
BMitch and Finlay are presented by John Leahy and the Fine Living Group. Find out how much your home is worth in less than 30 seconds at